Here's our before picture with the carpet.
And our after shot. Let's see how we did it.
5-inch white oak here, character grade. It's going to be pretty sweet. You can hear a squeak right now that we're going to try to get out. But we'll see how that goes.
Hey, Andrew here. Here's our 5-inch wide oak that we're installing next week. Just unloading the wood here. I always like to set the wood in at least a few days beforehand. We always test it as well, so it should be within the parameters of the manufacturer's specifications. So just always check that. So we'll check the subfloor, the plywood or OSB, whatever it is, and then we'll check the wood in a couple spots. But I'll show you that.
Wasn't so bad. I'll be acclimated over the weekend, and then I'll test it. I'll see what it is. I might spread those out a little bit more in between each pile there. Should be about 2-3 inches so it can acclimate. But we'll get started on Monday.
Starting Monday here by tearing this old carpet up. Here's one way to tear the carpet up if you don't have tape. Then we will pop up this tack strip. There's a lot of squeaks in this floor, so we re-nailed everything with our framing nailer there and repounded all the nails in, and I don't think there was any squeaks at all, so it worked really well. This is our floor edger here. We're using it to sand down our plywood seams that are uneven. That's one of the reasons we laid this floor on a diagonal, or we're going to, is because this subfloor was pretty uneven. The joists were they're spaced correctly, but the flooring in the house was laid two different ways. One was correct and one was incorrect. So we just kind of split that difference and went diagonal. Since it's so wide, we didn't want any of those joist unevenness transferring to our floor. So that's why we did that. This moisture barrier is called Bona R540. It's good for wide plank floors. So we got Robbie here getting our lines ready here. That's going to be just a dummy board, the wide plank, just our starter edge. You'll see we have these straps right there that we use sometimes. They're really helpful if you have wide plank boards. This is pretty good quality flooring. We got it from Bear Brothers out in Ohio. But it's still, because it's wide plank, sometimes you'll have trouble getting those tongues and grooves together. Here's our splines, or slip tongues, as we made a couple of videos on them already. We're using all three guns right now, the 18 gauge, the 16 gauge, and the side nailer right here. So that's just our existing floor that we had. Now it's time for the fun stuff here, the border. Just marking it out and cutting it. It just takes a lot of measuring and making sure you're where you want to be before you make that cut. We put blue tape here so that our line is clean. When we pull it up, it came out pretty well. Just undercut these jambs real quick with an old piece of flooring. Will fit under there nice and tight. We'll keep cutting these borders out. It took a little bit longer than we wanted to because we were recording and stuff, but there was a couple things I would have done. I would have definitely had a better blade, as far as like a router blade too. But for the most part, everything came out pretty smoothly. Just rinse and repeat. Keep doing the same thing. Make sure your circular saw blade is clean and sharp, and the right blade, the fine tooth enough blade. But just keep measuring off this and go. As long as it was under our 10 inches that we had for the width of the two boards, it was fine. We could, because we were putting quarter round down too, so the quarter round was 3/4 wide, so we had that little safety space too. And you can't see at the end though, we veered off a little bit at that far end where he's working at right now. We had to redo that. It was a little bit, we were off a little bit more than we like to, but that's the least visible area of the room, so it's the best place to make a mistake, I guess. Now we just go and router all these edges right here for our slip tongues. So we put glue in here as he's doing right now in our slip tongues, and then we slip them in the grooves there like that. And this is our first board here of our border, and it did take a second to get in because our slip tongues were a tiny bit off because they weren't factory and we had to make them. So a lot of times it is better just to buy factory slip tongues or splines than rather than make them, because they just fit a little bit smoother. But we decided to make them on this one. But if I could do it again, I definitely would have just bought some. Okay, I'm gonna put a sample down right here. I'm water popping this right now, and it's drying pretty quick there. The homeowner picked the natural, which is the first sample down the far upper part, which I think is probably the best choice for this floor. That's probably what I would have picked. Alright, it's time for the big machine here. This is our big drum sander belts that we're putting on right there. Just had a 50 grit belt that I put on. And we're just hitting this really quick with this machine because this floor is pretty flat. And then after that, we're hitting it with this guy. This is our epic buffer here. You can see the weights that he put on the very top there. It really gets that floor flat. You can see how aggressive it is right here. What this is, that's pre-finished aluminum oxide flooring. Maybe it's aluminum oxide, I don't know, but it's pretty aggressive there regardless with a pre-finished floor. But it really is a good machine for flattening out these wide plank floors. Okay, here's our edger again. This is the same machine we're using to flatten out that subfloor a little bit before. Just kind of do the same thing, but a little bit more finesse here. So we're just going on the very edges where our machine that we were buffing with before cannot reach. Now let's check out what Robbie's doing over here. He's sharpening his blade right there for our scraper. Get it for the corners where those other machines cannot reach. And you just want to make sure that blade is really sharp. You can see those shavings are really sharp. So back to edging here. We have a 50 grit paper on that edger right there. So we're just evening everything out and getting that old fill out. Those are some of our nail holes that we have filled right there. But you're just going pretty smooth, and this is a pretty easy floor to sand too because of the way that border runs. So you're just going along with it, along a long way. So it's about the easiest floor to sand with this machine. So we're just marking the knot holes that we're going to epoxy right here. It's our Merca sander that we use after our edging sander just to get some of those fine edging marks out. Okay, it's go time now. It's time to stain. So I have that it's Bona Natural stain in the tray right there. We're just smeared it on with a synthetic applicator, 18-inch. And then Dawson's going to just wipe it off. And it goes really quick since it's so light. You don't really need to spend too much time at all. It doesn't matter too much how long you let that soak at all. It's only going to take so much. But you just smear it on there and then wipe it off. Make sure it's dry. You can just see he's using the circular motions and overlapping each row he does. Now this stain is pretty forgiving, but you want to just be careful if you're going against the grain at all. You want to just make sure you keep your edges wet. That also goes for any of the sealer that you use or any of the finish. Anytime you go against the grain, like right here, right there, how he went press down right there, you want to always make sure you're smoothing that out continuously, or else that can definitely leave a mark. Not so much on this with this light stain and all that, but with like a pine floor and like with a darker stain like a provincial or something like that. So we're applying it by hand here, but you can use a buffer with like a pad on it and to spread it out. But with natural, something like this, with 3 guys, it's not really necessary.
And now it's time to apply the sealer coat. This is right after the stain here. And we're just going to keep this moving continuously as you're applying it. You're always just trying to smear it on there. For this specific sealer at least, you're just smearing it on there and then you're just straightening it out. It is pretty forgiving, so even if you left it like that, how it is there now, it probably would be okay. It's that forgiving, but you just want to keep it moving and keep straightening it out to limit any bubbles or lines. And this will dry pretty clear. It is color. It's the name of it is Pallmann Color. So it is a sealer that has like a little bit of a tint to it to give it a little bit of that oil look. But this will dry pretty clear. When you first put it on, it does look milky and looks really weird and it doesn't look right, but it will dry clear. And you can see Rob is just keeping ahead of me. He keeps pouring a puddle in front of me because I'm just going to keep that moving continuously there. He's just cutting in all that stuff right there. But you know, it's always good to have a guy that keeps you moving there. I'm going to start backing out here in a second, which is a little bit tricky, especially with sealer because it dries a little bit faster. But it's the same concept. You're just smooth it around, let it set for a split second, and then just straightening it out. Yeah, even if you apply your finish across the grain with this sealer on like the border and all that, you really won't be able to tell. With the finish, you want to kind of keep it straight with the grain, but yeah, the sealer is really forgiving that way. As far as which way you run it doesn't really matter. So you can essentially roll this across the grain, and you won't really be able to tell when it dried. Really pay attention to these high visible areas like right in front of this window and fireplace and doorway. So you really want to be careful for watch for any hairs or bubbles or anything like that, or lines with your finish. And then when you're backing out, you can always try to back out into like like if you know a piece of furniture is going to be there, or like a shadow area, like the wall to my left here. I'll probably try to back out there and leave that line, if there's going to be one, right there. And what about that spot right there, Robbie? We'll just buff between coats with 180 real quick. And for this is a coat of finish here. So we put a coat of sealer and then another coat of finish and then another coat of finish. And Our last coat finish will be the commercial finish. It's called gold, so it's Pallmann Gold finish. So it's pretty similar to the same way you coat the sealer, the same way you coat this finish here. A little bit slower, a little bit more. You're trying to get a little bit more even here, but the same thing. You're just spreading it around and just going with the grain as much as you can. Always make sure all your windows and doors are shut. Well, what do you guys think? Hey, hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.